Let's bring in our correspondent, Resul Serdar. He is joining us live from Damascus. Resul, what is the latest that you're hearing about the situation in the northwest?
Well, in the city of Latakia, which is the main port city of Syria, we're seeing that the security forces, the government forces, are in full control in the city center. And they have been also clearing some of the outside neighborhoods and the outskirts of Latakia, but they have extended the curfew for another day. Then in Jabla, Latakia countryside, where yesterday heavy clashes took place and it was a stronghold of the rebels, now the security forces are ruling in, and you're seeing that the intense fightings are still on the way over there. But the security forces are saying that they have lifted the siege of the rebels on some of the checkpoints, but particularly, that's important, on Al-Nur hospital, which the injured security forces were being treated there, but that was seized by the rebels. And now the security forces are saying that they have retaken the hospital. And the curfew in Tartus, another large city in the coastal area of Syria, they say that security forces are saying that they are in full control of the city center. However, in Banyas, the outskirts of Tartus, still the fightings are continuing and between the government forces and the rebel forces. But another town which is symbolically extremely important, Qardaha. Qardaha was the hometown of the Assad family, who ruled for 54 years in Syria. Now the security forces got into Qardaha and still the fightings are taking place. However, the security forces are saying that it's almost a matter of time of taking the full control of the city. While all of that clashes are happening from Latakia down to Banyas, we've seen that the negotiations are also still underway. In the morning, the rebel forces were asking the government forces to completely withdraw from the coastal areas, but now they are de-escalating. The tone of the language that's being used by them is quite looking for a reconciliation. And the latest statement released by the leader of the remnants, the remnants of the regime, now they're saying that they are ready to negotiate a peaceful solution.
And Resul, what do we know about these Assad loyalists and who might be supporting them?
Well, the security forces here in Syria are saying that they have received some evidences that are proving that these rebels have been in communication with some countries. They're not naming specifically the countries, and they're saying that they have captured some of the sophisticated communication devices that they have never seen before. And they're also saying that these remnants of the regime, for a while, have received salaries from some countries. But here, we have two names that are particularly important. The most prominent one that is now coming out is Dalla, the Mita Dalla. And Dalla has been a general of the old regime. He is on America's terror list, and he's known with his close ties with Iranians. He's saying that he has formed a military council, and they have decided, quote unquote, to liberate the coastal cities of Syria from the current government. Another one that is also, he was a senior member of Syrian regime, the al-Assad regime, the Miqdad Fatiha. He was a member of the 4th Division of Army, which was directly operating under the control and the command of Maher al-Assad, brother of Bashar al-Assad. So as of now, it's not clear whether they're really being supported by the third countries, by the outsiders, by some of the other parties or not. However, based on the evidences that we are seeing now, and based on the operational capacity, we can see that all of these attacks that took place since yesterday on were pre-planned and quite well organized.
Resul, thank you very much for that. Resul Serdar with all the latest live in the Syrian capital. Geist Pin-fold is a lecturer in international security at King's College London, and he's joining us live from Bologna. Thank you very much for your time. Given that many former regime soldiers haven't settled their status with the interim government, was this expected?
Well, yes, and this is something that's not new. Yes, it's an escalation, and yes, it's dramatic. This is kind of, yesterday was the day that the Syrian transition turned ugly, but there have been attacks for a very long period of time now. a group calling itself the Syrian Popular Resistance announced its presence via Telegram in December of last year and has been carrying out a low-level insurgency against the new government's forces. So this has been something that's been building for quite a while. The difference here is that this was not an isolated attack. This was a planned ambush. Now, we know that government forces entered those coastal regions to try and flush out and find and arrest members of the previous regime, high-profile members who did not report to these reconciliation centres or to hand in their weapons. So this was kind of a response to a police action by the regime, but it was heavily coordinated and organised. It's clearly been designed to make a splash and to put Syria on the path to sectarian conflict and civil war. So it is unfortunately an unwelcome return to the Assad regime's ugly tactics of dividing and ruling Syria through stirring sectarian tension.
Can these Assad loyalists succeed, do you think, in sowing this type of discord without foreign support?
Well, this is something that observers have been warning for quite a while, that Syria is basically on the cusp of more sectarian instability and violence. Actually, the Syrian people and the new regime have done quite well to prove us wrong until this point. But this is something that's been bubbling over for a long time. Iran, for example, is not finished with Syria. It's not done here. We've heard Iranian Revolutionary Guards, senior members of the Revolutionary Guards, in, again, December of last year, saying that they're going to use their networks in Syria to foment revolution and revolt against the new regime. So this is very much a case of those chickens coming home to roost. Iran has been actively trying to use Syria as a smuggling route for weapons from Iran to Lebanon, to Hezbollah, to bolster Hezbollah there, who need help now more than ever. So just because the Assad regime has fallen, it does not mean that Syria no longer is a vital part of Iran's chessboard in terms of projecting its power and its influence. So to suggest that Iran is gone forever from Syria is unfortunately extremely naive.
One of the former Assad loyalists who was involved in the latest violence has called for de-escalation after earlier announcing the establishment of a military council to liberate Syria. How do you read this?
I read this as basically pulling back before it's too late. I think there are a number of actors at play here, some of whom are in direct contact with foreign actors, for example, Iran, some of whom are deliberately sowing dissent and discord to try and start a sectarian civil war, and some of whom simply have lost their position of power and privilege in the previous regime. We're talking not just about ideological networks or former soldiers, but also criminal networks, for example. So there's all sorts of layers to this very, very complicated conflict scenario, all different actors with different urges and aspirations. But the issue here is we can blame all sorts of individuals. We can blame HDS, we can blame the Iranians. But the problem at the moment is Syria is ungovernable. Syria is ungovernable because of sanctions. Many major cities have only a couple of hours electricity a day. And what Syria really needs right now to stop this descent into civil war and ethnic tension is sanctions relief by the Western powers immediately and unconditionally. Without that, we are going to see Syria, the transition in Syria, turning uglier and uglier by the day, unfortunately.
That is Geist Pin-fold joining us live from Bologna. Thank you very much for your analysis. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.